A demolition worker entered an abandoned hotel room in Reed City. When she turned to leave, the door slammed shut behind her. Nobody was there. Just a few years earlier, another worker had discovered a hidden room sealed behind an ice machine. Inside sat a dusty bed, an antique Victrola, and enough cobwebs to suggest nobody had entered for a long time. But that's only the beginning, because a few miles away, witnesses report a glowing green light that approaches their cars before vanishing, and an abandoned airport sits forgotten. Once retro, it's now a shell of its former self. And that's a shame. The nearby forests are considered to be some of the most active Dogman territory in Michigan. Tonight we're exploring the strangest legends of Reed City and nearby Paris, Michigan. And one mystery keeps appearing again and again. Why does so much strange activity seem to center around this small corner of Osceola County? Before we investigate the hauntings, it helps to understand Reed City. The town exploded during Michigan's logging boom. Railroads brought thousands of travelers through the area. Oil discoveries attracted fortune seekers, and visitors arrived from around the country seeking healing waters at the then famous No Che Mo Mineral Springs Resort. Today, the resort has vanished. The springs are mostly forgotten. The railroad crowds are long gone. The hotel is gone. But many locals believe something else remained behind. And nowhere collected more stories than a hotel that some locals believe never truly emptied. Before the Osceola Inn was demolished, a worker made a discovery he never forgot. While working behind an old ice machine, he found what appeared to be a sealed doorway. Inside was a room frozen in time, a dusty bed, an antique Victrola, and thick layers of cobwebs covering everything. The room appeared untouched for generations. He closed the door and left, but according to him, the image never left his mind. What was the room for? Nobody seems to know. And it wasn't the only mystery surrounding the Osceola Inn. And when the hotel unfortunately came down in 2014, locals began reporting something even stranger. The activity wasn't disappearing. It seemed to move. Long before it became known as the Osceola Inn, the site began as the Oaks House in 1881. Just a few years later, disaster struck. The original wooden hotel burned. A brick replacement rose from the ashes to become Bartley House, established 1884, and eventually became the Hotel King, the Osceola Hotel, and later the Osceola Inn. For generations, it served travelers arriving by rail. It's been said even the famous Jesse James came for a stay. Then the stories began. Guests reported seeing a ghostly face staring into second-story windows from outside. Others described a woman dressed in white wandering the lobby and bar area. Another apparition reportedly appeared on the second floor. Then there was the gambler. According to local legend, a gambler took his own life inside the hotel and never left. Whether that death actually occurred remains uncertain. Researchers have searched for documentation, but the story survives mostly through local lore. What is documented is that the hotel developed a reputation as one of the most haunted buildings in western Michigan. Former employees spoke of doors opening by themselves, cold spots, footsteps, voices, and the overwhelming feeling of being watched. Shadow figures have been documented by investigators, as well as a spirit known as Johnny who is said to have haunted the basement. Former staff have encountered an aggressive male presence who's said to physically nudge people who entered his space. One former worker recalled discovering a sealed room hidden behind an ice machine. Inside sat a dusty bed, an antique Victrola, and decades of cobwebs. It appeared untouched for generations. The room was quickly closed again. The memory never left him. The most unusual chapter of the Osceola Inn story occurred after demolition began. Workers helping tear down the building reported strange experiences. One contractor entered a room on the upper floor. The door suddenly slammed shut behind her. Assuming it was a prank, she opened it. Her coworkers were nowhere nearby. Others described dark shadows moving through hallways and basements. Several workers reportedly refused to work alone inside the building. Meanwhile, nearby business owners began reporting unusual activity. Some claimed doors opened by themselves, others described unexplained sounds. By the early 2000s, the building sat abandoned, yet reports of activity only increased. Paranormal investigators claimed as many as 11 different entities occupied the structure. Whether ghosts or imagination, the stories became part of Reed City's identity. Then came 2014. The Osceola Inn was demolished, but according to local legend, the hauntings didn't end.
Almost everyone who lives in the small community of Reed City has a story to tell when it comes to the permanent guests who still reside inside of the Osceola Inn. And now, some of the crew members who have been working to tear down the building can join in on the conversation.
And they talked about being up on the third floor, inspecting the buildings, the different rooms, and she went inside one of the rooms and the door just closed right behind her.
Thinking that someone was playing a joke on her, the contractor walked out of the room and looked down the hall, only to find that her co-worker was at the complete opposite end of the building. But that wasn't all. That same contractor also reported feeling a dark shadow moving in front of her in the basement, something another worker also experienced.
He was in the basement, he was doing some work there, and again, this dark shadow just moved its way all around him and just moved off into the distance and disappeared.
So once this building is torn down, where will its guests go?
That is the big debate in the town. Some people have suggested that the Pierre Marquette restaurant is very close, so we've told Deb to be ready.
And Deb says she's more than ready because one of the hotel's most popular residents, Audrey, has already made an appearance at her restaurant.
My electric knife sharpener was on, and it was off the night before when I left. And we also came in one morning and the blender was going by itself.
But all ghost stories aside, this building is full of more than a century worth of history.
A few locals joked that the ghosts were being evicted from the hotel and searching for new homes. Whether true or not, Reed City's most famous hauntings refused to disappear quietly. They moved to neighboring buildings such as D&E Supply, which shared a wall with the former inn. Tenants in the upper levels reported unexplained footsteps and slamming doors. It became so intense that a young couple abruptly broke their lease and quickly moved out, and into a local pizza restaurant across the street. On Old US 131 sits Pompeii's Pizza. To most visitors, it's simply a local restaurant with good pizza. To others, it's haunted. Employees have reported chairs moving away from tables on their own, pinball machines activating without anyone touching them, objects falling from walls, and strange activity in the basement. Some workers claim items have flown through the air. Others report shadowy figures appearing in the alley behind the building between 9 p.m. and midnight. The alleged spirit even has a name, Mr. Reed. According to local lore, he was murdered in a nearby house and continues to linger around the restaurant. No one knows if Mr. Reed is real. But in a town already famous for ghost stories, the legend has become part of local history. Ghost stories may dominate Reed City itself, but outside town, the mysteries become harder to explain. Because the strangest mystery isn't found downtown, it's hiding on a lonely country road. Located about a mile north of Reed City along the Hersey River, No Che Mo was once one of Michigan's best-known mineral spring resorts. Around the turn of the 20th century, its mineral water was bottled and shipped around the country as a health tonic. The springs were heavily promoted for their supposed healing properties. What makes it unusual is the sheer number of springs. According to a U.S. Geological Survey report, there were said to be more than 100 springs clustered together in a small area. The springs emerged from a marshy amphitheater-like depression along an old bend of the river. Developers tried to transform the site into a full-fledged health resort. The springs were engineered into decorative fountains, walking paths were laid out, trout ponds were constructed, and a large bottling facility was built. Visitors could wander among dozens of bubbling mineral springs. This was during the era when Americans flocked to mineral spas, believing certain waters could cure everything from stomach ailments to nervous disorders. And just like that, it all disappeared. Are the springs haunted? It's a possibility. Have you heard any folklore or paranormal events associated with the springs? Perhaps they are connected somehow to the Green Lantern of Paris. A few miles south of Reed City lies the small community of Paris, and nearby is one of Michigan's strangest light phenomena. Locals call it the Green Lantern. Witnesses describe a glowing green light appearing in the darkness. The light slowly approaches, gets closer, closer still, then vanishes. Some claim it passes directly through their vehicles. Others say it simply disappears before reaching them. The phenomenon is reportedly seen along remote roads near Osceola Road and Diamond Road. No explanation has ever gained universal acceptance. Is it atmospheric, vehicle headlights, swamp gas, or something else? Whatever the answer, the Green Lantern has become one of Osceola County's most enduring mysteries. But the deeper into the woods we travel, the stranger the stories become. At this point, you might be thinking all of these stories have simple explanations. Old buildings make noises, legends grow over time, witnesses misidentify lights in the dark. But one story refuses to fit neatly into that explanation, because unlike the hauntings, this next mystery is still being reported today. Many people associate Michigan's Dogman legend with Wexford County. But Reed City sits just south of one of the most active Dogman territories in the state. The first famous sighting reportedly occurred near Paris in 1887. Witnesses described a creature standing upright like a man but possessing the head of a dog or wolf. Since then, sightings have spread across northern Michigan. Some reports come from hunters, others from motorists driving lonely roads at night. Even Expedition X investigated sightings in the Reed City area. The forests surrounding town provide the perfect setting. Dense woods, swamps, abandoned roads, miles of wilderness. And Dogman isn't the only creature reported here. Stories persist of smaller Bigfoot creatures peeking from behind trees and crossing logging roads. None are proven. As usual, Bigfoot on film is always blurry. Yet the reports continue. At first glance, Nartron Field seems out of place in a town the size of Reed City. A deserted airport complete with a control tower and terminal building sits quietly among the trees. There are no famous ghost stories here, no phantom pilots, no haunted hangars. Yet many visitors describe the same feeling, the sense that something is watching from the woods beyond the runway. And perhaps that's because the airport sits in the middle of territory connected to a much stranger legend. What makes it unsettling is something harder to explain. It feels as though everyone simply left one day and never came back. The Osceola Inn is gone. No Chemo, Mineral Springs, has disappeared into the woods and swamp. The airport sits silent. Yet reports of the strange lights continue. Dogman sightings continue. And locals still swap stories about ghosts that supposedly survived the demolition of the town's most haunted building and moved to neighboring buildings. Maybe every one of these stories has a logical explanation. Or maybe Reed City is one of those rare places where the past refuses to stay buried. If you've seen the Green Lantern and encountered a Dogman, a baby Bigfoot, or experienced something strange in Reed City or Paris, tell us your story in the comments. And as always, what do you think? Is this 99% true or not?